Welcome, everybody. Today's April 15th. This is the Heritage Preservation Commission meeting. If there are people in the audience who would like to speak during public participation, please grab your card and fill it out in advance. That'll save everyone some time. Thank you. Calling to order now. We'll start with roll call.
Duffy Westheimer,
Here.
Alec Overman,
Here.
Emily Dale,
Present.
Jesse Dominguez,
Here.
Alicia Hayes,
Present.
Jeannie Stevens,
Present.
Caitlin Stewart. I see that she is online, but we may be
Here.
having some. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
All right, from there, next item is to do the land acknowledgement. Would someone like to read it? No.
I haven't done it in a while. The Heritage Preservation Commission humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you, Commissioner Dale. All right, the next is the open call to the public. If someone has something they'd like to, we do. We have two. Sarah Dector.
Good afternoon, members of the Commission. My name is Sarah Dector. I'm the Comprehensive and Neighborhood Planning Manager, and I'm here today to share an overview of the Flagstaff Regional Land Use Plan 2045 and the upcoming special election on question 492. The Flagstaff region includes the Flagstaff city limits and the surrounding areas of Coconino County. About 2/3 of the county residents live in the region. It serves as the general plan for the city and helps to guide decisions such as zoning changes, annexations, and major development proposals. City voters will decide whether or not to ratify the Regional Plan 2045 through question 492. This is an election for residents only and is being held by mail. If you received this yellow card in the mail, then you are registered to vote. But if you are a city resident and did not receive this card, you should check your voter registration before April 20th. And then May 19th is when ballots are due. It's important you follow these timelines to ensure your vote is counted. If you vote yes on this ballot question, then the Regional Plan 2045 becomes effective immediately and the 2030 plan is superseded. If you vote no, then the current Regional Plan 2030 stays in effect and the city will gather feedback and would have to bring forward a revised plan in a later election. The regional plan is a policy guide for the community. It is focused on long-range policy for land use and growth, and it addresses topics like housing, transportation, economic development, climate action, natural and cultural resources, and public safety. It's been developed through a multi-year process, which culminated in the city and county adopting the plan and sending it to the ballot this year. The general plan provides a unified policy direction and a set of related maps for all city divisions and the county to use in decision making. It does not approve specific projects, change zoning by itself, or predetermine the budget. Those decisions happen later through separate public processes. Compared to the 2030 plan, the 2045 update includes clearer priorities, reduces the number of goals and policies, and includes action items for implementation. It also updates the future growth illustration and land use framework to reflect current conditions and community needs. There is a document available on our website, flagstaffaz.gov Regional Plan 2045, and you can find FAQs and other information to help you inform you as a voter. We also have regional plan chats, and there's even more on the website that you'll see through May, so people can come and talk to us at these informal events and learn how to navigate the plan. If you need any more information or you have questions, you can feel free to contact me during business hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. The next speaker is Phil Scandura. Oh, I apologize. Okay, sorry. Call to public. We did that one. And Public comment, Ariana Urban.
Hello, Chair Westheimer and members of the commission. My name is Ariana Urban. If I haven't met some of you yet, I am the Certified Local Government Coordinator at the State Historic Preservation Office and your humble servant. It's my job to help you guys with whatever you need in terms of running your commission and helping you be the best certified local government you can be. So I just wanted to give a couple of SHPO updates. We've got some things in the works. And now, of course, I'm blanking on all of them. We have set our first regional CLG training for this year. We are unfortunately are not going to be holding our annual historic preservation conference. I think this is the first time since 2003 that the conference is just outright canceled. So it's sad, but I'm still going to be doing the CLG trainings that I give at the conference every year, and actually I'm going to do them regionally this year. So the first one is going to be on May 30th in Mesa, and it's a Saturday. Of course, it's kind of a drive to get to Mesa. So I'm actually going to be doing the same training in Northern Arizona, likely in the fall. And then I'm going to be doing another one in Tucson or Southern Arizona, probably in the winter. So taking it on the road this year. But in conjunction with the CLG training in Mesa, we actually are also hosting our Governor's Awards, which is something we do along with the conference every year. But this year we're doing it on its own. So that's also going to be in Mesa at the Mesa Historical Museum Lehigh Auditorium, which was a brand new Heritage Fund grant recipient. So the Heritage Preservation Governors Awards are going to be held on May 30th this year. The deadline for them is today, unfortunately. But if you have any ideas for a project or a person or an entity that deserves an award, please just let me know and we can get you in, make sure your application gets in, no problem. So I think that's it. I don't know if you guys had heard about the Youth Summit that's coming back to Flagstaff at the first week of June. So if you know any intrepid junior high or high school kids who love civics and preservation and want to have a fun week for free to come and explore Route 66, I think we're going to Grand Canyon this year. That should be really fun. It's called the Preserve America Youth Summit. And I cede the rest of my time back to you guys. Thank you so much. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Ariana. So she's from the State Historic Preservation Office yeah. Okay. Then
I have a question. I have a question for Ariana, though, if I can.
can't.
As it's public comment, you can't comment or ask questions about the information.
So the next is approval of the minutes. Anyone have any corrections or additions? No. I think I have one correction. There's an incorrect word, I believe, under item 2 about 224 South Kendrick. 5 lines up from the bottom. The word preservation is used, but I believe it should have been presentation. Just an FYI for who takes care of these things. Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on February 18th, 2026.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Okay, let's have a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, the motion carries.
Do we need to wait for Caitlin?
Oh, well. Should have come.
Aye.
All right, so we go to the public
Can you
hearing.
hear me? Yes.
All right, public hearing. We have item 6A, Sanctuary Subdivision Phase 1 Cultural Resource Study.
I will be recusing myself from this part of the agenda because I will be presenting on this report.
Right, and good afternoon, Chair and Commission. Lauren Clementino, Heritage Preservation Officer. We have a team representing the applicant group today, so I'm going to let them move forward with introducing themselves and their project without taking up a lot of time. But all of your presentations are pulled up here, and if you want to pull up the report or anything, it's in here in the agenda item.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Adrian Dotson. I represent ETD Incorporated. We are an environmental consulting firm based here in Flagstaff, Arizona. We've been around for 30 years, and probably the reason why we've never been here in front of you because most of our work is on the tribal lands. So we're a Native American-owned, Navajo-owned company. Most of our work is on the Navajo Nation and other tribal lands throughout the state. And but we were recently approached by CD&E, who were working with them on some projects for the Indian Health Services throughout the state. But then they also wanted us to help them out with the cultural resource surveys for their subdivision projects, both the sanctuary subdivision and the Hidden Haven subdivision here in Flagstaff. So they brought up the Flagstaff Regional Plan. We were actually a part of that project. We were a subcontractor to the prime contractor, Cascadia Partners. And then we also worked on the, I think it was the 2020 Coconino County Joint Land Use Study. We do a lot of NEPA work, cultural and biological resources, as well as public engagement and outreach for planning and development projects. So I just wanted to introduce our firm. First and foremost, I'm the business development director, also a project manager. And Ace Overman, who you all know, is going to be going into the findings and the recommendations of the study. He was directly involved in the field work and with the writing of the report. Our principal investigator was not available to be here today. His name is Alan Bartholomew. He has 30 years of experience doing cultural resource studies. He has a master's degree. I can't remember from where, but he's also, meets the standard for the Department Secretary of the Interior's professional qualification standards for archaeology. And he's done over hundreds of projects here in the Southwest. So just wanted to introduce myself and our company, and I'm going to let CD&E introduce the projects and do an overview on the project, and then we'll have Ace talk about the findings and recommendations of the studies. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Ryan Mahar. I'll be the engineer of record on this subdivision. I'm here with Mogollon Engineering and Surveying, which is a sister company of CD&E. Mogollon has been producing all the pre-plat documents so far. So this is the subdivision location. It's on 3 parcels, APN 11210-005L. 005M and 005P. It's 201 acres, and actually this is a little larger than this shows more of the area, but it's basically the western 3 parcels on this map. I'd like you to note that there's quite a bit of topography and relief on the site, especially along the southern half where there is Sinclair Wash. So this is our P-plat that we're working with the city of Flag on. Currently it shows 195 4 lots. And then we have a couple tracts that are excluded from the subdivision, which may total up to 7 lots, which would bring it to 201, which is the allowed density per the estate residential zoning. So we're trying to do this subdivision by right and not go through the rezoning process. All right, I'm gonna hand it off to Ace.
All right. Hello, Commission. My name is Ace Silverman. Some of you probably already know that. I am the anthropologist and GIS analyst for ETD Incorporated, based here in Flagstaff. For this cultural survey, I served as the field technician. So here is the general location map of the project area. It's the 3 parcels that was already previously mentioned, located on the southwest edge of the city limits. So the project area as a whole was heavily utilized during the entire historic period, which is represented by late 19th and early of 20th century trash, axe, and saw cut stumps, historic features, and numerous historic modern party hearth features. Lots of beer cans everywhere, and associated modern trash. It used to be property of the Coconino National Forest land. Prehistoric use of the project area appears to have been minimal based on the survey. So the summary of our cultural resource findings includes 6 previously unidentified archaeological sites. Sanctuary 1 and Sanctuary 2 are historic trash scatters. Sanctuary 3, also known as the Sinclair Tank, is just the historic Sinclair Tank and a trash scatter. Sanctuary 4, which is dubbed the Sinclair Wash Overlook Site, is a prehistoric rock shelter that is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places and Arizona Register of Historic Places listing under criteria D. And then the 2 roads that go through the project area, Sanctuary 5, United States Forest Service Road 532, and Sanctuary 6, South Woody Mountain Road, United States Forest Service Road 231. There was a total of 69 isolated occurrences that included historic modern hearths, metal fragments, historic linear rock alignments, rock piles, car parts in a car, glass, complete mahogany obsidian biface, and etc. So here is the map of the 5 sites within the project area 1. So 5 and 6 are the 2 road locations. Sanctuary 1 is in the northwest portion. Sanctuary 3 is the Sinclair Tank down to the southeast. Sanctuary 2, again, is just a modern trash scatter on the edge of the property. And then Sanctuary 4, which is the National Register of Historic, the site that is eligible for National Register of Historic Places, is over in the southwest corner in the Sinclair Wash. So Sanctuary 1 is a total of 10,250 square feet, dating to middle to late historic, 1930 and 1940. It consists of approximately 200 historic artifacts and a low diversity of historic trash, scatter representing a single dumping episode. This site is likely associated with agriculture use of the region, timber harvesting, or perhaps later aspects of Fort Tuthill, considering it is within a mile of the site of the project area. Sanctuary 2 is 14,536 square feet. Again, middle to late historic. Consists of approximately 200 historic artifacts and low diversity historic trash scour representing a single dumping episode. This site is likely associated with agricultural use of the region, timber harvesting, or perhaps later aspects of Fort Tuthill. Sanctuary 3, Sinclair Tank, is 22,656 square feet, middle to late historic, 1920 to 1960. It consists of historic Sinclair Tank and a historic trash scatter and 2 prehistoric isolates. There was a total of 2 features, the Sinclair Tank and the berm that retains the water, and then a buried car dating from the 1940s to 1950s that had a couple, it was used for targeting practice. And the site is likely associated with agriculture use of the region, timber harvesting, or perhaps later aspects of Fort Tuthill. Sanctuary 4, Sinclair Wash Overlook Site. This is the one that is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. It is 52,993 square feet. Prehistoric use of it dates from 300 to 1400 AD, and then possibly middle late historic usage from 1880 to 1920. Consists of a probable prehistoric rock shelter with dry laid masonry walls, a probable prehistoric rock enclosure, and a small prehistoric or historic hearth feature. Not 100% sure. So there was a total of 3 features. The rock shelter, which was formed by a massive boulder falling over the top of the bedrock, forming an enclosed space. Its western side exhibits a dry-laid masonry wall. Feature 2 is a series of 4 dry-laid masonry walls, which enclose a small area on the top of the cliffs above the rock shelter and also served likely as a hunting blind. Feature 3, small hearth feature consisting of approximately 10 size sorted stones measuring approximately 50 centimeters in diameter. So here's some features, photos of feature 1. In the second one, you can kind of see the close-up of the masonry wall on the bottom there. And here's the feature 2 photos. And then feature 3, the prehistoric or historic hearth. Sanctuary 5, United States Forest Service Road 532 is 30 feet wide, middle to late historic, and this is the segment of the road that is located within the project area. Sanctuary 6, South Woody Mountain Road, United States Forest Service Road 231, again 30 foot wide, middle to late historic, and this is the segment of the historic South Woody Mountain Road that is located within the project area. So Sanctuary 4, the Sinclair Wash Overlook site, is recommended as eligible for the National Register of Historic Places and the Arizona Register of Historic Places listing under Criterion D, since it retains significant potential for buried intact subsurface cultural materials and or samples. In addition, its features are intact and will also likely yield subsurface cultural materials and or samples. The site is located in an area which will likely remain undisturbed during the construction due to its extremely rocky nature. However, the site should be avoided during construction, especially feature 2 and feature 3, which sit atop of the outcrop and are much more vulnerable to construction activities. The 5 other sites and all the 69 isolated occurrences are recommended as not eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, Arizona Register of Historic Places, Flagstaff Register of Historic Places, under any criteria. See, and overall, sanctuary sites 1 and 4 are generally in good condition, retain all their integrity. Sanctuary 5 and 6 have seen, for they are roads, so they have seen modern upgrades and are not in their original condition. So Pine Valley Partners LLC proposes to develop a single-family lot subdivision on 3 parcels located on Woody Mountain south of Coleto Lane, totaling approximately 201 acres. The cultural survey found 6 archaeological sites and 69 isolated occurrences were identified and recorded during the survey. Sinclair Wash Overlook Site, a prehistoric rock shelter and other associated features, is recommended eligible for the National Register of Historic Places and Arizona Register of Historic Places, listing under Criterion D for information potential. And based on these findings, we recommend that a project clearance is recommended with avoidance for Sanctuary 4, Sinclair Wash Overlook sites, a National Register of Historic Places and Arizona Register Historic Places eligible site during project implementation. Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Jean?
So I have a question about the rock shelter site.
Mhm.
You know, how close is it going to be to the housing areas? Like, were indirect effects analyzed for that?
Actually, yeah, can you pull up the map? Yeah, and show us like where the sites are on that map.
It's currently shown in an area that's going to be preserved for open space and will not be developed. That's what's being
So-
shown on the plat.
I'll show this one and then I'll show the one of the sites. So as you can see over here, here's the Sinclair Wash and then over here is the tank. And all the houses are going to be north of the wash. So then if we go back to the archaeological site map. Oh, wrong presentation. So the one recommended from the National Register of Historic Places, Sanctuary 4, is going to be over here in the Sinclair Wash. So again, if you remember just what we viewed, the development map, all the homes are going to be north of the Sinclair Wash. And so it should not be touched during construction at all, I believe.
Excuse me, can you give an estimate of how far away the houses will be?
Is it quite a bit of an elevation change?
Yes, it is quite the elevation change. Let's see. So it looks like, so it's on this side of the wash. So it goes through over a few hundred feet of elevation change. And based on my scale in the last one, again, this is not an exact measurement. I can always, if the commission requests it, I can provide an exact measurement just when I get on my computer. But it looks like it would be, based on the scale here, probably a good 600 feet from it, the nearest houses. But again, that's a rough estimate off of eyeballing right now, but I can provide the exact measurements if the commission desires that.
I don't need the exact measurement. Thank you. That is really helpful. And yeah, I just had the question if indirect effects from the proximity of the houses was something that was analyzed or addressed.
No, we do not believe there will be any direct effects from the project on the site.
And would there be any indirect effects? I believe is Commissioner Stevens' question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we do not believe there will be any indirect. We do believe there not be any indirect effects as well on the site due to the distance from the houses and the large change in elevation.
That's very helpful. Thank you. And my only other comment was just at one point in the report, it was mentioned that there were stumps at waist height. And we typically interpret those as being cut with crosscut saws.
Okay.
So a little bit of a different way of harvesting, but a little bit more earlier in the historic period.
Thank you.
For the future.
Okay.
Anyone? Yeah. Anyone else?
I have a question about the rock shelter site, and there were no artifacts associated with the feature that you think is probably prehistoric. Is there any possibility it's historic? I know there were sheep herders in that area, and because I had done survey for the Roger Lake Regional Park, and we did have sheep herding camps, and the walls are windbreaks were dry laid masonry.
Yeah, so like I said, we believe it's prehistoric, just based on the fact that we couldn't see any artifacts on the surface layer. Now there was a lot of leaf litter, but again, we do not believe it was historically used due to the fact that there was no artifacts. And throughout the rest of the site, we could see a bunch of historic artifacts, and with the trash scatters. They were quite present again throughout a lot of party hearths. And I know this is the historic you're going to referencing is a little bit further back, but still we do not believe it was. And then we do think it is somewhat possible that there was some historic use later on. Again, we are not 100% sure about the age of this hearth. We are leaning that it's prehistoric, but cannot 100% confirm without possibly doing more research and like going through all the leaf litter because there was a lot. Does that answer your question, hopefully?
Yes, also, it's kind of hard to tell from the photo just because of the time of year and the leaf litter and everything.
Yeah.
How much potential is there for depth? Because I see a lot of bedrock being exposed in the photograph. Are there just really small pockets possibly? Did you see any signs of maybe burning on the underside of the boulder that is lodged there to create that shelter, indicating possible use with a fire at some time?
I am not sure on the depth at this time. Unfortunately, I will say it was rather. Again, these photos don't give a wide scale of the rock shelter, but it was pockets as you described. Did I answer everything there? Okay.
Yes.
Can you pull up the map of the APE again? because it was very confusing to me in the figure 3. I thought that the weird center box was like not surveyed and not part of the area. So I would just maybe fix the caption to be project boundary of 3 separate lots. So I know you've surveyed all 3 areas. I don't know if
Yeah,
anyone else
so-
was confused by this. It looked like there was a hole in the project area based on the map.
So yeah, that I just wanted to include the parcel shapes.
Yes, this
Uh,
helps.
So yeah, so this one, as you can see, in the Flagstaff zoom out version of the project area is just that box. Is that what we covered? But yes, I understand the confusion. But yeah, I just wanted to show the parcels area, the various parcels that would be developed on.
Yeah, I just meant more the one in the report we got.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Doesn't include that information. So I thought
Gotcha.
the middle area was like not surveyed.
Yeah,
and
okay, I
was like,
refer-
what's happening
yeah,
here?
I
Why
re-
is there a hole in the middle of the subdivision?
Yeah, I'm referring to that map now, the topographic map that we include, the quad map.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of this report was redacted, right?
Yes, all of the right, all of
Okay.
the maps disclosing the site
So
location.
it's possible this is in a version I didn't see. And then my next question is, so the Sinclair wash site is also, even though it's not eligible, that's not also being impacted.
The Sinclair tank.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe, let's just go back and reference the site map from the development map from CD&E here. So yeah, the Sinclair tank is about right here. And again, there's quite a bit of elevation change in distance. So yes, the development will not disturb the Sinclair tank, I believe.
Okay, cool. Because my next question was, what is happening with the artifacts?
The isolated occurrences or the artifacts within the sites?
The impacted sites
So,
and IOs.
so the sorry. Again, all the sites but Sanctuary 4 are eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, and they just contain modern trash. I'm not exactly sure what will happen to those sites. I imagine they just be cleaned up or removed for development. But again, Sanctuary 4 does not contain any artifacts from what we could see on the surface level. There is likely, we think it's very probable that there are sites below the several layers of leaf litter there, but its features will remain undisturbed and intact during the project.
Okay,
construction.
I just meant more I mean, I'm assuming nothing is happening with Sanctuary 4 and Sanctuary 3. They're just being left as is.
Yeah, yeah, and then like Sanctuary
2 looks
6
like
and
it's also going to be unimpacted.
yeah, Sanctuary 2 would be unimpacted. Maybe Sanctuary 1 would be the only one that's possibly impacted, and then 5 and 6, I imagine, will continue to get road updates, probably paved, I imagine, instead of dirt roads in their current state.
Yeah, so what's happening with this stuff at Sanctuary 1? Because that's a historic site. And not modern. I just like to know where the cans go.
As it's recommended and eligible, there are no recommended treatment options. So there are no recommended options unless the commission would like to change the findings of the report.
Well, I was going to say, if they end up in a pile, they could end up in a pile in my lab, and that would be okay.
There- I will say this.
There's a bottle in it too, and it looks neat.
Number 2 is the one with a lot of cans, a lot of old rustic cans. Number 2 is there was like over 50 cans, just rusted old cans.
Nothing. That is the smallest amount of cans you can have.
Okay, maybe it was back in November. It could have been like 100. I don't remember.
I'll show
But
you
yeah.
a pile of 10,000 cans. Then we can talk. Okay, so no mitigation for cans.
Yeah.
For Sanctuary 1. Okay.
Yes, you can go out there and.
I mean,
look
I
at them if you
won't.
want.
But if someone wants from the
We're
company
not
wants to
encouraging
take me out
Yeah,
there.
I said look. I said look.
Yeah, because my next question was going to be, what are you doing with the car? But if the car is not being touched, then it doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, that site is also in the area that's currently being shown as open space in the development.
Cool, thanks. Those were my questions. Oh, wait, one more thing. I don't know if it matters, but sanctuary is spelled wrong in the PDF that we get. So I don't know if that makes it harder to search for people looking for this in the future. Just in the name of the file, not in the file.
Caitlin, do you have anything? Okay. I I have one comment on the very first map. So first, thank you all, you archaeologists, to step up and help out here. Bring your expertise. I think the first map needs more identification. First, it needs a title so you can refer to it, but also there are major roads. I think one is the freeway. I don't know, they're not identified. So you need these landmarks on this map and maybe on others as well. I don't know if you, it's the first map. All it says is the dry lake and the sedimentation tank and those kinds of things, but the roads are not identified. So the site's hard to envision where it is.
Are you referring to the map I have on the screen or in the map in the report?
In the report.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
But
figure 2. It's the one
Yeah.
that confused me as well.
I will make that note to our principal investigator.
And in general, it's just good to title your maps. I don't see the figure number, but it's on a computer, so. Ah, okay. Yeah. But it would be nice to have the landmarks, at least the two major roads identified. Thanks. Anyone else?
And I have a question that kind of follows up on that. I was trying to determine from the quad maps on there where the boundary was. It says corporate boundary Flagstaff. So is that the city of Flagstaff boundary? It's a dotted line on there, and I'm not sure because of the map information that's put over the date of when the USGS map is, of what year that's from. So is the parcels, they're on the outside of the boundary of the city of Flagstaff, correct?
No, they're all within the city of Flagstaff, which is why it's
Yeah.
City of Flagstaff project. So yes, it's all within the city limits.
Yeah. The western boundary of parcel 11210005L sits right on the western edge of the
Flagstaff.
Flagstaff city boundary, as you can see in the lower left map.
So a jurisdictional map showing the boundaries there and where the CNF and everything is would be nice as well, to be a little more clear. And I noticed too in there in the narrative about jurisdiction, it says there's no federal nexus, but this land had been CNF land at one time. So what is the history of that? Was this transferred to, was this an inholding? Because there are certain provisions about land that had been forest land having federal nexus, and Jeannie can probably answer to that.
I actually don't know the history of this parcel. And if I had more time, I would have looked it up, but I wasn't able to. So sorry about that. But you are correct in that if the land was transferred out of federal ownership, there would have been an inventory or some type of analysis. I did see that you spoke with Rebecca Cease, or somebody spoke with Rebecca Cease from the company, and she said that there weren't any heritage sites. I don't know if she provided any reports particular to that land exchange.
No, so that was one of the requests Lauren had for our report, was to go talk to Coconino National Forest. I did talk to Rebecca, and she informed me that there had been no artifacts or historical sites identified within these parcels that used to be Coconino National Forest land, and that no surveys had also ever taken place.
So also with a federal U.S. Forest Service road through there, is there no connection on that? I'm just curious how that works. Some places, some counties look at federal nexus differently. I lived in Pima County for a long time. If there are federal roads that go to a subdivision, they said that was a Section 106 undertaking. So I'm just curious to know how that is with Coke and Coconino County.
So far with the project, nothing has been identified. There's no federal permit or anything that's been required that the Coconino National Forest has any involvement in the project that's been identified. If that is identified, like you said, and as they alluded to in the report, if there are permits, then that would kick it up to their review. But at the moment, this is just come in under city review. And generally speaking, just to add to, sales, I mean, we see this more commonly with state land, but generally the clearance is done for the sale, which that is the federal action, the sale of the land. So it would have been done then, but then that process ends there. So like the parcels just north of this either were or are about to be sold by state land. So that clearance is done then, and then sometimes, you know, there are conditions that go with it if there were sites on the property. But yeah, in this case, no past records with conditions were identified, and the federal clearance would have been done at the time of sale.
And I also did reach out to the head permitting person at Coconino National Forest. I forget his name at this time, but he informed me that no permits are necessary for this project unless they plan on like having a road go through current national forest land to get into the subdivision, but that is not currently not the case.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any more questions? Nope.
I think Caitlin is on.
She hasn't responded yet, so. Oh, it did?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. In that case, do we have a motion? The recommended action is too many things on my screen. The recommended action is to approve the Phase 1 cultural resource study with the condition that if avoidance of the sanctuary forest site is not possible by the proposed project, additional mitigation subject to Heritage Preservation Commission approval will be required. So, do we have a motion?
My question on that is, for avoidance, do we need to include both direct and indirect impacts? This is, I guess, a question for
Staff.
well, if we can, for staff and for the other fellow archaeologists, because for all we know, people will be standing, you know, the workers might be standing there and tossing Coke bottles down into the wash, and like, we don't want that.
Who's going to monitor? That was my question.
Well, and that's where the condition comes in. If avoidance is impossible, then we would have the power to like assign a monitor, right?
Right. So right now, as I mentioned, it's being shown as open space. There will, you know, you can recommend other conditions, but it will not be developed in that area. I mean, my recommended action is really if the project plans change, and I will keep monitoring them on my end because I'll see all of the applications through the process. So if it all of a sudden this area is going to be developed, then I think it needs to come back to the commission, and then you would recommend something different. But I mean, the indirect effects, it's stated that in their professional opinion, there won't be any from the project. So if you disagree with that, then now would be the time to discuss that if you think additional conditions are needed.
I think we should request a condition that storage of materials from demolition or from excavation and materials needed for construction are kept away from Sinclair Wash. Can we request that?
And not the sites, you just not kept away from the archaeological site. You're just asking that in general.
Well, for environmental reasons, also
Right.
away from the wash and the
I
archaeological
would
site.
just suggest limiting your condition to what's within the commission's purview, which would be protecting the archaeological site. Not that there aren't, you know, other reasons, and I do think stormwater and other things would prevent them from placing any materials in the wash already. But yeah, just focus your conditions on protecting the eligible site, assuming you all agree with the findings
Yes.
of the report.
I'm the one that brought up the thorny issue of indirect effects, so apologies, but I'll give my evolving thoughts on this, which is not having been to the site. I'm a big believer that you trust the person who's been there and their recommendation. And so if topographically you think that is protected and shielded, and it certainly appears that way to me, and the indirect effects weren't really looked at, and to be honest, they're not known. The only thing that I could think of if we were going to recommend an action is some type of educational sign about protecting cultural resources, but I honestly don't even know where to begin with that because we're not there, we're not the ones, you know, who know that area. So just bringing this up, see if anybody wants to comment on that.
If I could speak on that real quick, it is quite the climb down. When you get into the southwest corner where the site is, it is quite the climb down into the wash and then quite the climb up to the actual rock shelter.
I would think that workers won't have an opportunity to go across the wash and up the side while construction. But think in the future, this is probably going to be some kid's fort. I mean, there's just nothing to do about it except, documentation of it is probably the best that you can do. I am kind of on the fence about whether to have educational things or not. I've worked at parks where we ended up going out and removing them because people could see them in the distance and they went out and then, they thought, oh, that's something we're not supposed to do. So they went out there and did that thing that they're not supposed to do. So it can be either way.
Well, part of my question too comes from, and maybe this is part of the report that has been redacted, but there's nothing in the report that says this site will be directly impacted by construction. And so I think that might help with the motion because then that will tell us what is and isn't. I don't know if that's something that could be added to the report, just like a little line or a thing in the table just to be like impacted by proposed subdivision, yes, no. Or something like that would help then define what is being asked in this. I'm trailing off because I don't know how to end the sentence.
I mean, no, you're not. There's nothing you haven't seen. It just that the only eligible site will be avoided. So, and I think, so I'm not sure what you would be asking to add, like a table.
There just already is a table in there listing all the sites and what they are. So I don't know if another column that just says impacted by subdivision, then later someone could be like, oh, that's under that house. And then we would know. I don't know.
Sure.
Now that we've kind of gone down the path of indirect effects and direct effects, that could have actually, I mean, there's a reference to how to evaluate a historic property. And so just talking about impacts to things, indirect and direct effects to integrity in the report could have been helpful. I mean, I could picture this kind of where it is and so that it wasn't there, but that kind of opens up potential questions when that's not been addressed. I'm not saying that I think we should see another copy of the report or anything, that's just pointing that out.
Any more discussion or are we ready for the motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the phase 1 cultural resource study of the sanctuary subdivision phase. Yeah, I move to approve the sanctuary subdivision phase 1 cultural resource study with the condition that if avoidance of the sanctuary 4 site is not possible by the proposed project, additional mitigation subject to the Heritage Preservation Commission approval will be required.
I second the motion.
Any more discussion? Okay, no more discussion. Let's do the vote. Do we have in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Caitlin, was that in favor or opposed?
In favor.
Thank you. Okay, and sounds like we have nobody opposed. The motion passes and we move on. All right. Thank you everyone who came and presented. Appreciated that you came in the building to do it.
And they're all staying for the next item, which is also involves CD&E and Mogollon as well as ETD, and it's the Hidden Haven Estates Subdivision Phase 1 Cultural Resource Study, which includes both the Class 3 archaeological survey as well as a built environment assessment. And so I believe same thing, they've got presentations to cover the background on the project, and then ACE will present on the findings of the study.
Hi, good to see you again. Should I introduce myself again? Record. So this is Hidden Haven subdivision. It is currently the Arizona Mountain Inn. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's a series of cabins that are rented out for short-term rentals. It's located near the corner of Lake Mary Road and J.W. Powell Boulevard. That's kind of their main entrance, which is technically across forest land, and it's not allowed. Nobody's going to stop them, but it's that's just currently how they operate their business. So the proposed subdivision will actually enter off of Sioux, which is to the north. It's kind of hard to tell, but if you can see right up here, there is the Oakwood Village Apartments, and so they have a portion of the improved road, and so Hidden Haven will extend those improvements onto the property and create 49 single-family lots. There is some tracks for open space as well as storm detention and drainage. So yeah, this is the old forest road. So I believe it got decommissioned by the Forest Service, but obviously it still functions as a road. Also, Brian, the owner, is here. He's owned the property for over 25 years. So if that section of history needs to be discussed, he's available. Thank you.
So as Lauren already stated, we did a cultural survey and a built environment building assessment for each of the structures that were over 50 years old. So again, this is the project overview that C&D just went over of the development of the proposed future development. So here's the general location map. It is 4 parcels totaling in 23 acres, currently where Arizona Mountain and Cabins is located. So the property history. Prior to 1948, the land in the project area was heavily forested with no development. The land experienced some logging or recreational fieldwood cutting dating back to as late as the 1880s. This activity has likely continued into the present day in some form. Raymond Wanick, I'm sorry if I'm messing it up. First purchased 13 acres of the current property in 1948. He began construction of cabin 1 in 1949 after marrying his wife Pauline in 1953. Ray constructed cabin number 2 in 1956. Ray and Pauline Wanick would go on to have 4 kids whom were raised on the property. Ray continued to construct cabins on the property until 1988 when last structures, the Hogan and the main inn, were constructed. In total, the property consists of 21 structures today, consisting of cabins, the main inn, Hogan, garages, workshop, and a small cabin. And just some So according to the website, it says these cabins were built in 1949 and 1956, but the Coconino County Assessor's Office has a different record. Their record, let me see. No, no. Do you know? I know for cabin 1 off the top of my head, I had these in the notes portions of my slides, but I can't see those right now. What if I did like that? Let's see. Okay. I'm sure it's in a different part. Okay, we'll just keep moving on. The cabin number 1 was, according to the Coconino County Assessor's Office, was constructed in 1955. But again, the website says 1949. For the purpose of this project, we made that disclaimer that the Coconino County's Assessor Office states this for cabins 1 and 2 regarding the year they were built. So Arizona Mountain and Cabins website states that the property operated as short and long-term rental business beginning sometime between the 1950s and 1960s. However, the first mention or reference to the residence as a business operation did not occur until 1976 when the business was mentioned in that year's Flagstaff City Directory. According to the website, Arizona Mountain Inn and Cabins, prior to 1998, Those that stayed at Arizona Mountain cabins were primarily NAU students and faculty. In 1998, the current owners, Brian and Mary Boswick, purchased the property and business. They've operated Arizona Mountain Inn cabins as short-term rentals and a bed and breakfast over the last 25 years. Raymond Wannick passed away in September 2003, and his ashes were spread near cabin number 1, his and Pauline's original home on the property. Pauline passed away in March 2025. So a summary of our cultural resource findings from the survey: a single archaeological site was depicted in the southeastern portion of the area of potential effect on AZ site. The site was recorded in 1980 by the Museum of Northern Arizona and was described as a sparse lithic scatter located along an interim drainage consisting of approximately 20 to 30 obsidian fine-grained basalt tertiary flakes. No evidence of this site was located during our survey. Within the boundary of the former site was an isolated occurrence, PL21, a yellow-orange shirt-tested cobble, and it was the only prehistoric artifact located during the survey. There were a total of 23 isolated occurrences identified during the cultural survey, including rock piles and trails, pits, historic machinery, and historic cabin, for example. Based on the cultural surveys and previous surveys, the property appears to have had minimal prehistoric use. The property as a whole was heavily utilized during the entire historic period. In summary, the survey identified no archaeological sites and 23 isolated occurrences. So here is the structures within the project area, and here's the map of it. As you can see, most of them are located in the southern portion of the project area. So the summary of our building assessment: 14 structures underwent a built environment evaluation for being over 50 years in construction, all constructed prior to 1972. Determine if any of the structures were eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, Arizona Register of Historic Places, Flagstaff Register of Historic Places, and the property itself is eligible to be considered a historical district. The structures were constructed from 1949 to 1971, with 7 of the 14 structures built in 1971. Structures range in size from 100 square feet to 1,536 square feet, with the majority of the structures in the 524 to 570 square foot range. 8 of the 14 structures are A-frame cabins that feature a steep triangle roof line. The structures of the cabins typically consisted of wood framing with portions including with some that included portions of local limestone. All the structures were built on a stone foundation. Typical features within the structures included metal, stone chimneys, stone-lined pathways, wooden stones, Adirondack chairs, and wooden decks. Cabin number 1 was the first residence/structure constructed on the property by Ray Wannick in 1949. It is 720 square feet. Its architecture is that of a vernacular stone construction, characteristic of local cabin construction. Features include a stone exterior, wooden post, a green metal gabled roof, flagstone floor, wooden stove, local stone chimney, flagstone porch, Adirondack chairs, fenced yard with stone pillars, and stone-lined parking area and path, and an exterior stone fireplace. Cabin number 2 is a single-level cabin constructed in 1962, 608 square feet. Architecture reflects that of a log cabin style. Features include a low-profile gable roof, wood plank flooring, wood stove, metal chimney, covered flagstone porch, windows with cut-out pine tree details, stone-lined parking area, and Adirondack chairs. Cabin number 3 is a single-level cabin constructed in 1966. It is 550 square feet. Architecture reflects a contemporary rustic cabin style. Features include horizontal wood siding, cross-gabled roof, wood stove, metal chimney, ramped handicap accessible walkway, covered wooden plank deck, and stone-lined parking area and paths. Cabin number 5, also known as the honeymoon cabin, is a single-level cabin constructed in 1955, 572 square feet. Architecture reflects a contemporary vernacular cabin style. Features include uniform wood siding, cross-gabled roof, timber post, light-colored ton and groove wood planking, wood stove, metal chimney, wood plank porch, stone-lined parking area, and Adirondack chairs. They really like those chairs. Cabin number 6, it was constructed in 1971. It is 524 square feet. Architecture exemplifies the A-frame cabin style. Features include a steep triangular roof, wood cladding, elevated wood plank deck, wooden posts, and Adirondack chairs. Cabin number 7, constructed in 1971, is 524 square feet. Architecture exemplifies the A-frame cabin style. Features include a steep triangular roof, wood stove, metal chimney, elevated wood plank deck, stone pillars, stone-lined parking area and pathway, and Adirondack chairs. Cabin number 8, constructed in 1971, 524 square feet. Architecture exemplifies the A-frame cabin style. Features include a steep triangular roof, wood stove, metal chimney, stone-lined parking area, wooden post, wood plank deck, and a stone-lined railroad tie and wooden pathway stairs on the east side. Cabin number 9, constructed in 1971, 524 square feet. Architecture exemplifies the A-frame cabin style. Features include steep triangular roof, wood stove, metal chimney, stone-lined parking area, knotty pine, ton, and groove planking, open wood plank deck and stairs, stone pillars, flagstone standing, and Adirondack chairs. Cabin number 10, constructed in 1971, is 572 square feet. Architecture exemplifies the A-frame cabin style. Features include a steep triangular roof, wood stove, metal chimney, stone-lined parking area, knotty pine, ton, and groove planking, open wood plank deck and stairs, wooden posts, concrete landing, and Adirondack chairs. Cabin 11, constructed in 1971 for a total of 572 square feet. Architecture exemplifies the A-frame cabin style. Features include a steep triangular roof, wooden stove, metal chimney, stone-lined parking area and pathways, knotty pine, ton, and groove planking, open wood plank deck and stairs, stone pillars, concrete landing, and Adirondack chairs. Cabin number 13 was constructed in 1971, 748 square feet. Architecture exemplifies the A-frame cabin style. Features include a steep triangular roof, flagstone flooring, head hone log framing, local stone facade on the exterior, wooden stove, metal chimney, stone-lined parking area and yard, knotty pine and ton groove planking, newer open wood plank deck, local limestone blocks, and Adirondack chairs. Cabin number 16 is a two-story cabin constructed in 1967 and was the Wennick's second residence on the property. It's 1,536 square feet. The architecture exemplifies a generic log-style cabin. Features include a pitched roof, elevated deck, local stone pillars, second-story wooden decks, local stone chimney, flagstone fireplace, knotty pine, ton, and groove planking, Adirondack chairs, wooden stairs, flagstone, limestone block landing area, flagstone and stone-lined pathway, and parking area and a workshop. Cabin 19 was constructed in 1955. It is 372 square feet. Architecture exemplifies the A-frame cabin style. Features include a steep pitched roof, ground level wooden deck, wooden stove, metal chimney, knotty pine, ton, and groove planking, local stone pillars, stone-lined parking area, and a single large limestone block stair. Small cabin is likely the oldest extent structure on the property, dating sometime between 1900 and 1925. It's 100 square feet. Architecture exemplifies generic log cabin. Features include a concrete pad and older style wood plank backing techniques. District level evaluation. So due to the numerous structures older than 50 years of age, the property area as a whole underwent evaluation to determine the property constitutes a potential historic district eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places, Arizona Register of Historic Places, and Flagstaff Register of Historic Places. As a whole, the collection of 14 structures retain all 7 aspects of their integrity: location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. The structures remain their original locations, maintain their historic forms and materials, and continue to convey the general character of a mid-20th century forest residential compound. Despite later alterations related to maintenance and adaptive reuse, the majority of structures retain sufficient physical integrity to be identifiable as historic age resources. The site layout reflects its incremental development history, with cabins arranged and forming along internal roads and pathways rather than according to a formal plan. However, while the buildings as a whole retain their integrity, there is an absence of significance demonstrated under one or more of the applicable criteria. Therefore, the property is recommended as not eligible for listing as a historic district in the National Register of Historic Places, Arizona Register of Historic Places, or the Flagstaff Register of Historical Places. Each of the 14 record significance and integrity. Each of the 14 structures within the property project area are recommended as not eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, Arizona Register of Historic Places, and Flagstaff Register of Historic Places under criterion A, B, C, or D. The reason for not being recommended for any of those listings under criterion A is that none of the structures can demonstrate a significant association with historical development patterns, including the mid-20th century recreational tourism boom here in Flagstaff. Criterion B, none of the structures can demonstrate a significant association with important people significant to history at the national, state, or local level. Criterion C, none of the structures can demonstrate distinguishing or remarkable design, construction, or architectural elements. Criterion D, all of the structures have undergone detailed documentation limiting their future research potential and are unlikely to provide any more other information valuable to understanding the past. Each of the 14 structures that underwent a built environment evaluation retain several elements of their integrity. All the structures besides the small cabin retain all 7 aspects of their integrity: location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. Summary and recommendations. Mary and Brian Boswick, Hidden Haven Estates subdivision, proposes to develop a single-family lot subdivision consisting of 49 homes on 4 parcels located at 4200 South Lake Mary Road, totaling approximately 23 acres. No archaeological sites were located during the pedestrian survey, and 23 isolated occurrences were documented, none of which are recommended eligible for the Flagstaff Register of Historic Places, National Register of Historic Places, Arizona Register of Historic Places, listing under any criteria. A built environment evaluation of 14 historic structures within the project area determined that none of the structures could be recommended as eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places, Arizona Register of Historic Places, and Flagstaff Register of Historic Places under any criteria. Based on these findings, we recommend a project clearance of no mitigation measures or avoidance, and no further cultural resources work is recommended for the Hidden Haven Estates subdivision project. Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Commission, anyone have anything to ask?
Just a comment. Thank you for a very clear presentation, very detailed. Thank you all so much for presenting that. I don't have any questions at this time. This report, I feel maybe I'm misremembering. Did it mention an earlier report that had been completed at this site?
No, I mean, they were 2 separate reports, and the archaeological class 3 survey was done first, and then the built environment is a separate report that was later added as a appendix. So there could be that level of
Yeah,
confusion.
that's what I was wondering, if there was like a separate thing or if the appendix was.
Yeah,
the
the
second thing.
appendix
Okay.
was just right. Originally, just the class 3 was submitted, and I requested the built environment assessment, and as they were involved different an additional firm, it was added as a separate appendix.
Cool, thanks. My next question is there a reason that each building was designated as a IO instead of as like a district or as a whole site?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. That was determined by our historical specialist, who's not here with us today, from Lithos. My best guess is that they all meet the age of 50 plus years, and so that's why they listed them as isolated occurrences, because they weren't in connection, and it's like their closeness to one another wasn't. They were very spread out, is my only guess off the top of my head. But again, if the commission wants, we can directly ask him that question to report back.
I was going to say, and you're asking about the original class 3 report.
He was just talking about, we found 26 IOs and each building counted as one. I'm like, but they're not independent. They're part of this larger project built by the same people for the same purpose. So to me, that reads more as like a site or a district. And by classifying them as isolated occurrences, it feels like they're very disconnected. And we see that a lot where, and I'm not accusing you of this at all, but you know, if you can say this isolated occurrences and this one isn't, then you don't have to think about the integrity of the site as a whole, which makes it easier to start tearing things down because you're not thinking about the connections between them.
And another approach, if you're asking for changes, is again, that was written first before the buildings were evaluated. And so maybe that can be removed completely from the archaeological report and left to the built environment assessment. Instead of listing the buildings as IOs for the class 3 and then separately evaluating them in the built environment assessment.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
As-
they would
'cause
just
the
be
district isn't-
individual features at a larger site and you describe them independently, but they're part of the same, you know, they might be far away and across a very vast area, but they were all, I don't know, other archaeologists might have different perspectives on this coming from, you know, Section 106 backgrounds and stuff, but.
I've never listed a building as an IO, so it's a building to me. I mean, there's buildings, there's structures, there's certain things that are defined in the National Register of Historic Places. So I was kind of trying to wrap my brain about that, but you know, that's not, I've not done that.
Nothing to add on that, except, yeah, I also don't define buildings as IOs, but there is the in-use exception.
Yeah.
So I wondered if it was related to that. Didn't even want to bring that up for the last report with the Forest Service roads. I think it's just different way of categorizing it, but it sounds like what we needed to do was the built environment assessment, and that did happen.
I had more questions, but I forget what was one of them? Oh, I think, so you mentioned that several of the buildings retain some aspects of integrity, but not all of them.
All but the small cabin. So all but this one. Its feeling and association has been diminished over the years because again, it was built before any of the other structures. It was built in 1990 from sometime in 1925, and back then it was far more rural than it was coming in 1950 when the 1949 when the first cabin was constructed. Like when this cabin was constructed, Lake Mary Road did not even exist back then. So yeah, its feeling and association have been diminished, but it retains all the other aspects of integrity. But
Okay, yeah, one thing I found helpful in some of the other reports we've gotten here, and maybe it's just this appendix isn't searchable, so it's hard to find, and it's like 1,000 pictures, so it's hard to find things in it. But one thing that other reports have done is like a table or just, you know, all of these things. Here's like, this has feeling, this has association, this has, just so you can see visually. It was really hard for me to tell in this report and from your report, you're like, it retains all these aspects, it's not eligible. And I'm like, but why not? And there wasn't like a clear explanation of what was lost that makes it not eligible.
It's not actually the integrity at all. It's because it doesn't have significance. And if it doesn't have significance, then it doesn't matter whether or not it has integrity.
Oh,
because
is
it
that
has to have both. So because none of
Yes.
them, their argument is none of them have significance. Therefore, even if it retains integrity, it's still not eligible.
correct.
And each of the buildings does have a significance evaluation under all of the criteria, and so does the district. So that it is in the report.
Oh, okay. It must be in the not searchable part because when I search for significance, it comes up twice and neither is an explanation of what's going on. So
Yeah, as it goes building by building, it does talk about the significance and integrity and goes each criteria.
Yeah, I can apologize for the Appendix B, the building assessment not being searchable. When we try to integrate it into our cultural report, they sent us the PDF Lithos did, and when we try to integrate it into our cultural report, the page numbers would not get all right and stuff, so we had to put it in as images. So that's why it's not searchable, unfortunately.
okay. Is that something you guys are working on for when it will like live at the city?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Like, is that something you can continue to try to fix?
Yeah.
So it is searchable in the future?
Yes.
That could be a condition of approval, that it be resubmitted in a searchable format.
I was balancing between I love how thorough this is and all the pictures, and then also just like, but I can't find anything in it. So, yes. And then I guess just my last question was out of curiosity. When is this still being used as rentals? It looks like the owners who bought it are the ones who are converting it. Are they just like sick of dealing with people, or did they never? Okay. Cool.
I have a question, and this might be something that Lauren might know. Are there context studies for resort cabins and things in Arizona? Because those are, those are part of our history in the Southwest, and we're losing them. And I'm just curious, how many are still around?
And they did address this a little bit in the report, because it is interesting, and Ace can probably speak to it maybe better than I can off the top of my head, but that was one of the questions I asked in my review, was placing this in context of all the other ones. But because it was most of the history, it was not developed as a resort property. It was long and short-term rentals, so it wasn't really the resort property that you would be thinking of in that tourism context, was the argument that they made in the report, that therefore like it is not eligible or significant like as a tourist property for that reason, because it didn't fit into that context.
So I do have one comment about the report with the can history, which I noticed was the same for both reports. There should have been a little bit more local. There was a lot about Spanish coming into the Southwest and everything. For instance, like along the Lake Mary Road, I believe there was a sheep driveway. There were other things that could be mentioned just so that we know too, like if it's not within the parcel or close by. I assume just looking at the names like Pat Stein, that would have been called out in some report or something if there was something there, but something that's more relatable to location of that property, and maybe kind of skip going deep into the Paleolithic because it's not applicable.
The Alza family, who were sheep herding family, owned property at the north end of Lake Mary Road. They still own it, I think, on the west side. So it's very close to there. So there probably is some sheep remnant, camp remnant in the area.
Oh, and just the construction of Lake Mary itself as a recreational destination. There's a reason it's Lake Mary Road. There's a reason why they probably put the, potential recreation camping area on that parcel.
So yeah, I can speak to that to a certain extent. So again, the earliest history we have for this property, in particular for all the documentation was for the Arizona Memory Project. And what we found was that there was, again, the first time this property was ever used was purchased in 1948 by Ray, and then he began to develop it. One of the conditions for his wife had when they married each other was that because again, it was a lot different than is compared today. Most of the development along Lake Mary Road didn't exist till the early 2000s, I believe. That was, and if you want me to live out in the middle of the woods, I want people near me. So he began to construct other cabins, so friends and families could have a place to stay instead of like in downtown Flagstaff, and that way they could be close by. So again, there is no mention of it as a business operation for lodging until 1976. That's the first evidence we see of it. The website says again in like sometime in 1950s and 60s that it was used for short-term and long-term rentals, but again, that could have just been for friends and families. We're not 100% sure on that, but we are sure it was a business come 1976 officially. So.
Just for this group's educational purposes, with the Forest Service, we did look into all of the recreation residence communities around Mormon Lake. So if people aren't aware of what a recreation residence is, it's hard to believe, but in the early 20th century, the Forest Service was trying to encourage more recreation on national forest lands. It kind of blows your mind because it's very opposite today. But what the Forest Service did was allow people to build their own private cabins on land they leased, and then there are these little communities, and we have a large number of them on the Flagstaff Ranger District, and they kind of ring Mormon Lake. So Pat Stein looked at and evaluated a number of these for us. St. Joe's Camp, Marticore, there's a whole bunch of them, Montezuma Lodge, that was a good one. And out of all the ones she looked at, there was only one that she made a recommendation to us that it was eligible, and it was actually, it was the oldest one, it was the best condition, and it had a Teddy Roosevelt connection. So if that's helpful for anybody. And then we did look into some tourism and sites on the forest adjacent to Foxborough Ranch this past year. So I'd be happy to send reports if that would be helpful for any of this type. Sounds like there's no changes being made, but just for anybody who's interested in these resorts in Flagstaff area, I'm a resource. So.
Anyone else? No? Oh, Jesse.
I guess because I'm the old guy on the commission, I remember those places were way out there on Lake Mary Road, and Castleberry created a bow and arrow acres, and that was, I just remember a big fire out there in one of those cabins, and it burned down to the ground, and everybody in Flagstaff had to go see the fire. I mean, it was just one of those things. So it's just the history that that place has. And one of my concerns is that being preserved, the historical value of those people, the family, the signage. Getting off of Lake Mary Road, you would always see that sign saying, hey, the cabins. Going out Lake Mary Road to Lake Mary, there's the signage. So hopefully some of that is preserved and maybe for historical value donated somewhere. But there's a lot of history in that property. And I know development is development, but I think that if you could preserve a little bit of that history, it would be neat. Thank you.
If I may, I'll add that I almost lived there in 1981. But I get around by bikes, and it was a little farther than I wanted because it was out of town back then. I would also ask the owners, rather than just demolish the buildings, if you would offer them, sell them and let people move them. Not just because we have a housing shortage, but because they're cool and some of them are a good size and people might want to move them and keep using them. So I would hope you would consider that. But we do have a public comment. Ariana Urban, please.
Hello again, Ariana Urban. I live at 123 South Park Street. I'd like to just bring up an idea that we often talk about at SHPO and something that we've been seeing that's happening across the state, and that is that National Register eligibility isn't the only marker for historic preservation. Sometimes I like to say, historic preservation with a lowercase h and a lowercase p can happen too. When we're looking at a resource like this, I also really love that sign and hope it can get stowed away safely somewhere. But when we look at a resource like this, it perhaps isn't going to be eligible for the National Register, and we won't be able to proceed that way, but there are still other ways that historic preservation can happen. So like Duffy mentioned, to offer the cabins, to the public for anyone who'd like to move them, or to salvage the materials in another way, might be an interesting way to do preservation. I don't know. I mean, maybe some of them can be ADUs, like the houses that have with the original cabins in the backyard could be, the premium lots perhaps for a subdivision like this, and the property owners can do what they want with them. But when and in a situation like this, we might not even necessarily need to talk about mitigation, but it just takes a little bit of creativity, just a little, to really come up with a strategy that feels good and is good, and is doing right by both the property owners and their their rights to develop along with the history of the property. So my resources as a historic preservationist are available. We also have an architect on staff in our office who is always able to meet and brainstorm and discuss anything you guys like to. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything? New ideas? New thoughts? New questions? Nope. Okay. So we need a motion, please.
Do we want to talk about conditions?
My one condition is that they make the appendix searchable.
Do we want to take out IO, buildings as IOs and replace that with buildings in the report?
Does that need to be a condition, or is that just a thing that we
It would
would
need to
like
be a
them to do?
condition if you
Okay.
want them to modify the report. You need to request that. And whether it's, again, because that evaluation happened before the report, the built environment assessment was requested. I mean, there could be a course of just, removing the discussion of them as archaeological site completely and just deferring to the second report. So removing them as IOs if that's what the commission would like to add.
I could see that being done rather easily globally through the report. It won't take somebody all that much time. And then I don't know if that's like something we're asked globally, if we even need to see it again, just asking as a condition.
And that would be could be part of the condition is that those two changes, if that's what the commission is requesting, they can just be resubmitted to me to approve, and then I can add it as a future agenda item, as an approval item that I have approved the changes. So you can see the report again, but you don't have to go through a full review again.
So I have a question for my fellow commissioners. Do we want to ask that any other more local references be addressed and add to the appendix, and maybe like a paragraph or two added in for the background history, or no?
You just mean that one section at the beginning where they're like, in the prehistoric period, there was the archaic, and then came the Spanish, or that section.
And there's like 3 sentences about when people moved into Flagstaff. Yeah.
I mean, I think the appendix does a good job of going over the particular history of this.
That's what I was
property.
just going to ask, is if you're adding the historic period context for the built environment assessment, was that adequately covered by the second context section in the separate report in the appendix?
Yes, I think it was. So maybe it's just sort of a note for the future is to use more locally referenced instead of the same canned information.
We see those across every company's reports like this that we get, though. So it's not just this one. I mean, I copy and paste things all the time because I rewrite them.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the Phase 1 cultural resource study for Hidden Haven Estate Subdivision Phase 1 cultural resource study. I said that twice. With the condition of globally changing or removing the referencing the buildings as IOs and leaving that in the built environment report. In the final report turned into the Heritage Preservation Officer. And make that a searchable document.
Second.
Any more discussion? Yep. Okay. Then let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, she's not here.
Caitlin.
Aye in favor.
Okay, any opposed? Nope, none. Okay, the motion passes. The Phase 1 cultural resource study is approved. Thank you all for coming in. Appreciate it. We're moving on to item 7. Let's see, 7A. Deputy City Clerk Georgiana Stasky will provide an open meeting law on boards and commission training refresher.
Good afternoon. I don't usually talk right here. Thank you for being here today. Georgiana Stasky, Deputy City Clerk. As Chair mentioned, I'll be doing an open meeting law refresher. So today we'll go over kind of reviewing the roles of commissions, going over some open meeting law, some conflict of interest, and then questions. I know over the last quarter we had some new members join, so appreciate Jeannie and Alec, Ace, and Caitlin joining. Thank you for your service to the community and all the continued commissioners continuing to serve on the commission as well. Oh, is it? I thought I wasn't loud enough. Is that better now? There you go. I just need to stand closer. So we have different types of boards and commissions for the city of Flagstaff. We have about 26 of them. All the boards and commissions and committees are classified as advisory, ad hoc, or quasi-judicial. A lot of them fall under the advisory and ad hoc section. They have the primary responsibility of making recommendations to city council, and the ad hoc ones make recommendations regarding specific issues that designated by the city council. The quasi-judicial, which you guys fall under, is a public body other than the court of law possessing the power to make decisions. So some other ones are Board of Adjustment and Building and Fire Code of Appeals. So you guys are kind of unique where you fall under that decision making, but you're also advisory where you can make those different recommendations to council under the authority. So the primary role when making the recommendations to council is that they can accept recommendations, they can ask for provisions to change provisions on it, they can send it back, they do not have to accept it. So it's really up to the council and kind of what they decide to do with the feedback you provide and the research that's been done, but they ultimately get the final say. We also have staff liaisons, Lauren and Sarah. So we appreciate them being here and being the staff that's available for this. They ensure compliance with open meeting law, and Nancy, with our agendas and everything and the minutes. They can answer any questions related to staff city policies and procedures. They can coordinate with other divisions and departments for different sorts of presentations. They report those recommendations to council that you guys decide or come up with. And part of being a commission and those recommendations is that when you guys are working on different projects or maybe request different projects, is that the staff liaisons will actually take that up the chain to their division director, and all those requests, especially ones that provide or that create a substantial demand for work product, need to be reviewed by the division director. And that's just to make sure we're accommodating staff time and finding and making sure it's placed in the right programs and appropriate in their work. We also have subcommittees and informal working groups. So some subcommittees, we have very formal, like the bicycle advisory, pedestrian advisory. Those actually came off the Transportation Commission. They have very specific duties, roles. They report to that commission, but they also have to keep minutes and agendas. So much more formal than the informal working groups. Informal working groups are really nice to have, especially when you guys have a lot of projects on your plate or a lot of different recommendations you're researching or looking into. They can provide the research and gather that information for specific purposes. So there has to be a reason that you create an informal working group. But what's nice about it is they can have members of the public or other subject matter experts. So we just have to have less than a quorum because you're meeting outside the meeting times. They are not required to have minutes or agendas, which is nice. It's a more informal for that reason. I like to highlight this little section here, though. No action, statements, or recommendations can be made or provided to the working group on behalf of the commission. So similar as when you're out in the public, you're not saying like working as you're working in your own capacity and not representing yourself as the commission because the commission moves in the collective. But so similar to working groups, they would report back to the commission. You guys can take that feedback similar to how you work for the council and those recommendations. You guys can work through that recommendation or the research they found. But it's a really helpful tool, again, especially when you guys have a lot on your plates and you really have those specific projects that you want to work through, different recommendations for council. So kind of moving into open meeting law, any questions so far? Okay. So I'll read these two just because they're pretty much the main core concepts. So all meetings of any public body shall be public meetings, and all persons so desiring shall be permitted to attend and listen to the deliberations and proceedings. And the second is, it is the public policy of the state that meetings of public bodies be conducted openly. Notices and agendas are provided for such meetings and contain such information as is reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters being discussed. So kind of breaking that down a little bit, meetings shall be open to the public and follow the requirements. So on your notice and agenda, you have when and where the meeting will be. Every commission has that, and we have that 24-hour requirement. If it's after 24 hours, we can't make changes to the agenda. It needs to be moved to another month. And then the information to inform the public, so those agenda items, we have our online platform, which is really nice because that makes it a little bit more accessible. We have the different links. So just being able to have that packet information, knowing what's going to be discussed, and everyone has that same information. Legal action, so the motions and votes must take place in a public meeting. And that's really important to have those discussions in front of the public and making sure they have the opportunity to hear those, partake in those if they have comments, and those types of things. And then only agenda items can be discussed. That's outside of the open call, but again, even with open call, there's not the back and forth. But the best practice is to keep conversations about the agenda within the public meeting and during the designated agenda item time. And if there's questions for staff, you receive the agenda packet pretty well in advance. And staff's able to look into that. If you have questions, when they send that out or the invite out, always feel free to reply only, not reply all, with any questions. And that way staff liaisons are able to gather that and provide it to everyone. So everyone's kind of working off the same information level field and just being able to have those productive meetings in front of the public. It also helps prevent any potential influence and perceived bias. And you guys do some executive sessions. So there are some exceptions with executive sessions, and those require with consent from the city attorney, and those are closed sessions, so not in front of the public.
Excuse me, I have a question for you. How is it handled when people are not online? Because some of the public don't do everything online. So how is that handled? How do they know about public notices?
So we have the board right out here in the hall. That's the 24-hour requirement posting. If it's not posted out there, you cannot meet. So that's accessible during business hours. We also have a QR code. I know that defeats the purpose of kind of the question, but if it's not business hours, they'd be able to see it that way or at the library. But that posting right there has all the agenda items and then the staff liaison information, so they're able to reach out and get the packet if they need it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So diving in a little bit further, but I think it's important to point out a couple things in the definition here. So what constitutes as a meeting? So a meeting is a gathering in person or through technological devices of a quorum of a public body which they discuss, propose, or take legal action, including deliberations. We live in a new world, technology age, so that includes texting, emailing. That's why you often see in the email, like, please do not reply all, please do not forward, things like that. The public doesn't have access to that, and all those discussions really need to be happening in front of the public on the meeting. That's recorded for the minutes and the recordings that we post online now. Again, any questions, always reach out to your staff liaison. They're able to coordinate that information and provide that out so that that's available to everyone. Emails are public record. Those texts are public record. So, no group texts or anything. And it doesn't matter if it's a personal device. If we get a public records request for emails between a commissioner and staff or between two commissioners, those are all subject to those open meeting laws and public records request laws. And we do get them. So not to scare anyone, but very important to just keep in mind. It's a new world. It's very easy to kind of get lost in that, but just making sure we're not meeting collectively as a group outside of this, wherever the meeting is held, even online. And then a majority of the membership is a quorum. And even if you have a vacancy, it's still the majority of a membership. So if we don't have 4 people, for this commission, it would be 4 because you guys have 7 members, then you cannot meet. So that's why our office tries to keep up on any vacancies. We do postings with public affairs for social media when we have those vacancies and things like that. So next is why do we have the open meeting laws? So the first one we have listed here is to protect the public. Again, just that those conversations happening in the public avoids any decisions making in secret. They like to call the open meeting laws the sunshine laws. And then it promotes accountability by encouraging public officials to act responsibly and responsibly. I always mix those two up when I'm saying this. So again, all the information is in the agenda packet that's available to the public. It's available to you all here. It lets them be a part of those conversations. We also have it to protect our public officials. So avoiding being excluded, again, notice, agenda, minutes. None of you are hopefully blindsided because everything is in that agenda, or if you're feeling like it's not, working with your staff liaison to feel like all the information is available to you and the public. And then to accurately memorialize what happened, which is the minutes. And then we have to maintain integrity of government, better inform citizenry, and to build trust between the government and citizenry. And that's why we also make all of our meetings available online as well in the video. So just that accessibility component.
Thank you. I have another question.
Of course.
It used to be that you could jump ahead and you could find places in the recordings, and that's disappeared. Will that be returning?
This question has come up recently for a different commission, so I'm glad you brought it up as well. We're hoping to maybe bring it back or somehow be able to incorporate some sort of way to easily find where we're at. Maybe it's something in the minutes like this item started at. So we don't have any formal things right now coming back, but it is coming up in conversations and how we can combat that. But yes, the technology of that did go away with the platform, which was very unfortunate.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So there are penalties if there's violations of open meeting laws. So a court can levy a fine up to $500 for each violation, and the city does not cover you in that. So if you're found that you have violated open meeting law, that is a fine you personally have to pay, and you're also subject to removal from office. We also have notices of quorum, so social events or when you guys are meeting outside of like a meeting, staff will post a notice of possible quorum, and it just includes statements, you guys aren't making decisions, you're out, whether it's a social event or doing the tours. You're just going to get information as a group, and you're not, having a meeting where the public's not able to come or access it. So kind of moving into decorum. Before I do that, any other questions on open meeting law or anything? Okay. So the chair is the presiding officer in all the commission proceedings, and during the absence, we have the vice chair. So appreciate you guys, as I know it takes extra time and effort. So we appreciate when people are able to fill those specific roles. So members may speak after recognition by the chair, and the chair shall not unreasonably withhold such recognition. So if there's multiple people that want to speak, the chair determines the orders of speaking and then recognizes the first speaker. While a member is speaking, no one else shall interrupt except to make a point of order or a point of personal privilege. So I just wanted to add those definitions as well. So a point of order is when a member notes an infraction of the rules or improper decorum, and it must be raised immediately when the error is made. So multiple people want to speak, the chair had already recognized the order, people start talking over each other. So that would be an example of point of order. And then point of personal privilege can pertain to noise or personal comfort or other related items. If someone's making personal statements, maybe unrelated to an agenda item, things like that. So kind of that, again, more of that comfort. And again, just raising it when it happens and the chair can hear it, and we can resolve it there. The other important thing to remember, just kind of with, not just with decorum, but in general, is that the commission moves in the collective. I know I touched on it a couple times already, but if there's ever more information that you need on agenda items about the commission, you can ask staff and they can get that information. If it's specific to HPC, if you have other boards and commissions questions, I'm always available as well. Just kind of some other tips, general tips for meetings, refraining from side conversations, turning off your phone, waiting for the previous person to speak, kind of goes with the decorum. The speaking clearly for the audience is really important, especially when you guys are in this room, where if the microphone's not on, the online people can't hear you. And then it won't be able to be captured in the recording. So again, just kind of those general tips. If you're not able to attend in person, really coordinating with your staff liaison to make sure you can attend virtually, and how your absences are affecting quorum. Chronic absences can end up in removal of your position. So just making sure you're communicating. Things come up all the time, but just making sure staff is aware. So I have a little bit of information about conflict of interest. If there's like specific cases, I encourage you to always reach out to your staff liaison, reach out to me. We can loop in legal if we need to. But this is kind of what we just generally go over with our boards and commissions members. So there are two different types. So we have substantial, which is generally affects your financial or property interests, you or your relatives. In this case, you would refrain from voting. Generally, for a lot of other commissions, it doesn't come up that often, but we do ask them to kind of leave the room and making the conflict known very clearly for the record. I recognize that this may happen with HPC, as we saw even tonight. So when you're acting as a consultant, exactly what you did, coming off the dais, making a clear statement for the minutes that you're acting in your professional capacity and not as a commissioner. Probably best to do that just for each item, even if you have multiple items in a row for the minutes. And then being able to do the presentation, answer any questions. They can sit in the audience during deliberation and voting. It happens more often with this commission, so that's the recommendation we're providing for that one. And then remote conflict of interest, we have remote interests or financial and property interests that are so minor they don't trigger reporting and non-participation. So you can still vote. And just a example I have here is maybe an architect had a consultation years ago with an applicant on an unrelated project. So kind of some simple examples. Again, always recommend reaching out if you have any questions on specific instances. And then gifts and bribes, public perception, and any perceived bias. Like, we do not want to accept any tickets to anything, any dinner gift certificates. So if you feel uncomfy about something, again, always reach out to your staff liaison. They'll loop in legal if they need to. But again, just that public perception that we want to make sure we're not taking any gifts or bribes. So that is generally what I had. I will tell you we're hoping to update our manual. It's going to be a big project, so hopefully this year. I say that loosely, but if that gets updated, I'll be sure to come back and make everyone aware of different changes and send that out. But it is available online. I'm always available via email as well if you have any questions. Are there any questions?
I have a somewhat related question. Commissioner Dale got one of the on-base generated emails about renewing paperwork. And I know Chair Westheimer also had just gotten that. And I don't know if you want to speak to what you're experiencing with that.
Yes, thank you.
I just sent you an email.
Perfect, thank you. So over this past year, we have been working with our system, our internal system, and during that, there was a big move of all the applications and all the applicants and all the members, and for whatever reason, it triggered like new orientation paperwork for everyone. So if you received an email from OnBase this year, I would say just ignore it. If you needed something, I will reach out to you personally. So that's kind of the easy answer. The long answer is it's just taking some time to work through this system, but we are very close and hopefully it'll be much easier to access paperwork and actually be able online at any point to be able to access rosters and see those live and see those vacancies across the board. So hopefully some good things in the works. It's taken a little bit, but yes, if you received anything from OnBase, just ignore it. Awesome. All right.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have the map that Lauren created.
Yes, the next item is 7B, the Historic Signs and Facades Grant Tracking Update, in which there is nothing to report since since the February update. The one outstanding grant application that's in progress at 822 West Grand Canyon, they have received the building permit, and last update I had was the work should be completed by next month, so on time to, the hope was to finish and be reimbursed by the end of the current fiscal year. So that is still on track, and no other updates. Though I have been promised that there is a new grant application coming for the May agenda, so we shall see. But any questions on the grants?
Looks like no.
All right, and the next item is the updated Heritage Resources, Special Districts and Neighborhoods map. So a previous version of this map that I think was completed and last updated in 2021 has been on our website for a long time. And there, public facing that everyone can access. There was also behind the scenes, there's a city staff GIS portal that has the same information and city staff can access, these National Register listings and other things. And so I have been noticing since I started in this position that the majority of the locations, unfortunately, on per parcel for that National Register listing map were incorrect. So some were just completely on the wrong parcel. I think one of the Reardon properties was like in the middle of Milton Road and some other things. I noticed a few things where there is a National Register District boundary increase or decrease. That point had been pulled and depicted as an individually listed property. So I've been noticing these things, and we have two wonderful interns working in comprehensive neighborhood planning this semester, both of whom have a GIS interest and background. And so they helped me go through all of the GIS data and clean all of it up and verified it against the National Register database. So now every point has been moved to on the parcel level to the correct property, and every point has been double checked. So so that the biggest change. And then additionally, we have in the last year, for those who, or a little over a year ago, for those who are here in January 2025, we listed the first building in the Flagstaff Register of Historic Places that is not listed in the National Register. So now we have this whole new category that the map didn't previously cover, and that's the Kinlani Apartments building. So we added that category on the staff GIS side for staff, research and use, as well as on this public map. And there were a few city landmarks and districts and properties that weren't previously displayed on the map for whatever reason. So we also added those. So the map is posted on our Heritage Preservation Maps page, and then I will just pull it up here. So, and it's very small. Let's see. Here we go. So here are the changes. So, and I know in this level as a static map, it's hard to tell exactly where all of the properties are, but they are now all in the correct location, and it does give you a better idea of where things were. There was some misinformation before, like for example, one of them was over the Orpheum, which is neither in a historic district nor listed individually in the National Register. And it was actually a point noting that in the late 80s, Barry Goldwater had helped delist it from the National Register. So that is, but people had seen this map and had mentioned that, oh, but the Orpheum is listed in the National Register. I was like, well, actually, it's not. It's just this map makes it look like it was. So those sorts of things are cleaned up. And let's see, and I believe the overlays, the historic landmark overlays were updated like outside of downtown to include the museum and Picture Canyon and Old Main. And I don't believe the museum were previously shown as historic districts on the earlier iteration of this map, even though they are. So, any questions about the map or the project? Chair Westheimer?
Yeah, I have a question, a comment. So it's nice. Thank you for updating it. Is there any chance you can add addresses? That's one question.
Yeah, I don't think it on the map, but we had previous discussion, just suggestion to maybe have a separate table that accompanies the map that shows like the address and name of all of these individually listed properties. So that way you could then, verify. If you couldn't tell, this was Lowell Observatory, but some of the other ones are harder to know what they are. So, so that could be, and we have all of the data, so we could easily create that table and add it.
So I just wanted to ask for some clarification, please. You said that Orpheum was delisted from the National Register, but it is in the overlay.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Right, it's still because city process versus federal district. It was removed from the Railroad Edition Historic District.
I'm sure there's a story there.
Yeah, I'm sure there is too.
And that might be, reasons for why it could be eligible again, even more.
Yeah, it's all of the, some of the, all of the delisting paperwork are in the full National Register nomination package, because it's there originally, and then they just keep appending it so you can see here's the letter from Barry Goldwater saying he was contacted by a constituent who wants these buildings removed. So yeah.
First, this is beautiful, and I love it so very much. My second question is, for the Old Main, is it that dark blue or the light blue?
It's the dark.
Okay, so then what's the light blue?
It's just NAU.
Okay.
And the GIS team didn't label the park open space green, the educational blue as separate layers on the map, but it is the dark one.
I thought that's what it was. I just wanted to be sure.
Mm-hmm.
Just thank you for this great map and would definitely appreciate the table when it's produced. No pressure. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that I think will be fairly simple. And I will say, yeah, for internal use, it's I think that will be the biggest thing is now everyone in the city, all of the planners, building safety, everyone, they've got all of this data is corrected. This is an internal city resource most of us use every day. And now all of the information is right. You can click on it. You can see like, oh, this is Lowell Observatory. This is this property. You can get all of that information. So it's so much better than it was before. So I think we're all pretty excited about that update as well.
Anyone else? Caitlin? No. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Lauren. It's awesome. Thank you. Okay. The next item is something I requested, which is discussion of outreach and education program. It is in our enabling language that we should be doing education, and Lauren mentioned that it's been a challenge to have people come in to use the Signs and Facades grant. It just seems that it's time for to do some public outreach and educate about historic preservation and the opportunities it presents to the public and the values of, at which point I will mention that Lauren sent out something that I sent her, but I'm not going to find it, but it's a training opportunity through the Historic Preservation Alliance of Historic Preservation Commissions, which has tons of information available to people. But it's on the economic value. It's a presentation from Place Economics on the economic value of historic preservation. So that should be in your inbox somewhere if you want to check it out. I think if you're not a member, it's a $15 fee to sit on the webinar. So, all right. So that's a discussion that I wanted us to have to see if we would like to do more to discuss historic preservation and make people know grants are available. And this is a program that we have here. Anyone have any comments?
I mean, are you imagining that we're making a flyer or that we're like going door to door or like tabling? Like what do you envision this at? Because I have a job.
We all have jobs. I do like 5 jobs, so I understand. We can discuss what we would like to do. Like we could do a flyer to all, if we can find the budget for it, a flyer or some kind of message to people on historic properties. We could do a 1-day, half-day seminar here in the city. Maybe the SHPO office would help us out with some education materials, or we could ask Ariana to come and do some education for even our city council, because maybe they don't understand that economic value. There are a lot of opportunities. So I just wanted us to have this discussion because we're not, it hasn't been done in all the years that I've been on here. We used to have a preservation conference in Flagstaff that was local, but that hasn't happened in decades. So I just wanted to have the discussion. And I know Phil wants to speak to this. So is this when we would do this? Let Phil come up now? Lauren?
Usually you'd have your discussion and then before you move forward.
Okay, so fellow and fellette commission members, anyone have anything they'd like to bring up?
So I think that's a great idea. I can think of a couple of different things maybe we could do that might be attractive to different groups or something. But something that struck me when Dave was giving us a tour is he said, a lot of people talk about they don't want to, come to the Heritage Preservation Commission or something because it's just going to be a delay or cost for their properties. And I think that that's a general misconception necessarily just because something's 50 years old that we're going to be, we're going to cause trouble. we're going to be cause a challenge or an obstacle. I think it would be really helpful for the community, and especially areas where we have historic districts.
I love this idea so much. Education is really my happy place. So thank you for bringing this up. I've got a lot of ideas. I also have a job. But it occurred to me that maybe there are places where we could integrate some messaging about historic preservation into existing places. Like, so, there are different festivals. There's, the city sustainability office maybe has a table at these different events for Festival of Science or for all of the different events we have in Flagstaff. And I just wondered if there could be some messages produced, or we could maybe get some assistance with making it better in terms of some of the information we're putting together. I was just wondering if that type of forum would make it more like achievable and attainable for us. And then the second thing I wanted to say is a few years ago, I went with my oldest. His middle school class was doing a walking tour of the murals downtown with his art class. And it was a really interesting thing, and the kids got a lot out of it. And I've always wondered if like a self-guided walking tour of like historic sites in downtown could be something that was able to be given out. Of course, the homeowners would have to buy in and there have to be all sorts of messaging. Don't bother these people. But, to raise awareness of these buildings because new is what the kids want, right? And there's this bulldozing of the past that is so stressful for all of us. But I would say the younger generation, they don't understand it. And so even basic education, I know that's a big project, but just even that type of information, I think would be really helpful. So excited to work on this more and talk about it more.
Could I just say what we already do tabling, and then just so you know, so we do have grant flyers and resources, and generally, I take that to all of the public meetings I go to. And hand out, and we, take it tabling as well. Like we've been doing lots of regional plan tabling in the last year, and those flyers come with us about the grant program to all of those. I go to Sunnyside Neighborhood Association meetings, other places. I'm sure Commissioner Dominguez got some of the flyers at his La Plaza Vieja meetings. So some of that is just so you know what's already being done. The flyers available in the lobby right now, among other things. But so that's the baseline of what's already being done. We're going to Art Walk. Sarah is this weekend going to with the Sustainability's Earth Day at Bushmaster Park. And I can make sure she takes the flyers along. But so that's what we're doing already in terms of tabling, just a few baseline for what's already being done.
So is there anything then that you think that we could contribute to instead of us brainstorming ideas that you're already doing? Like what?
Well, and I think, open-ended brainstorming. Of course, some of this is going to require staff time and money. So we'll have to have, as Georgiana mentioned, we're going to have to go up the chain for that. I don't have a budget for producing materials. So that would, maybe if it's a bigger thing that the commission is requesting, that would be something we would maybe need to request in a future budget year for, producing packets for the visitor center, those sorts of materials. Although a lot of their, in terms of the walking tours they already have, they do both online but they do, produce them for the visitor center. But that, maybe we do have quite a few walking tours, but I don't think any of them are like specific to the residential historic districts, which seemed to be what Commissioner Stevens was like getting at. So maybe, that could be a commission-led project that doesn't need to involve staff time. Is the commission, could work on that, and then if we were going to, produce it, we could see the capacity, for city budget for producing the walking tour materials, and work with and the visitor center participation on that, but those don't exist currently.
It's a little late, but I think that Earth Day was something that we could talk about historic preservation maybe next year. I mean, what is more sustainable and less impact on climate change than saving the building that's already been built and not putting things into the landfill? So,
Right. And I do think things like that, those are the easy options, things that the commission wants to attend as commissioners, maybe without being a quorum, but, that there is a cost to that too. But, or as Ariana mentioned, right, the youth summit is coming back. Several commissioners participated last year sharing their knowledge and expertise. That sort of event could be participated in again. We have a state planning conference taking place here later this year. There's an open call for sessions right now. Any of the commissioners that could put in for sessions that they would like to do at that conference.
So I'm thinking those are all great ideas, of course, but I also think that we need to educate residents and property owners in Flagstaff of what's here and take a leadership role in valuing the history that we have and showing that it's okay to care about it. It's great to take care of it. The tourists come here for it. So I don't think that's our audience for this commission. I think our audience is more residents and property owners and council. That's my feeling about it. I'm, all for tourism, and encouraging tourists to learn more. But if we don't get the property owners to take care of it, there's nothing for the tourists to see.
Yeah, Sarah would like to jump in.
Okay, Sarah? We have Phil.
Thanks. I just want to maybe give a little more context to how the budget for comprehensive planning, which includes historic preservation, works. The total budget that's the base budget for the program is $16,000 for everything. So all projects that has not raised in any way, shape, or form since 2012. I think was the last time there was any increase in our base pay and our base like programming money. And I think that's pretty typical of all city departments that we've seen pretty static base amounts. So when we want to do a project that's more than like a few $100s, and even if it is, if it's in competition with other assigned work, that can be a challenge. So one thing to consider is whether there are grants the commission wants to apply for to do work that you want to do. Like if you're thinking we need to scale something up, or we want to do like Tucson does, where they do a mid-century modern tour every year, or things like that. Some of that might either need to be a specific budget request, which you would have to put together by December, and then it would go to the division director, and then the division director can decide whether they want to send it to the budget team or not. Or you can maybe find grant funding, and we, the grant staff and us, can put time into helping you find and manage grant funding for something. But they're really the $16,000, I spend it every year in like a heartbeat. Most of the time noticing and printing eats the entire budget, and then there's maybe a few $100s that we spend on supplies. Even like having a meeting room for something can be a few $100s. We're paying for a church meeting room for the regional plan chats, and 2 hours is about $150. So if there's not programmed money assigned for a specific project, it's a very limited resource. Just to give you maybe some context as you're thinking through budget. Generally, we have in the past requested, like, could we have $2,000 or $3,000 for additional HP outreach or printing or materials or advertising, and we've not received that since I've had the program in my shop, which was 2019. We asked maybe like 3 of the last 6 years for that kind of funding. So just so you know, that's when we're dreaming of things, keep the dollars in your mind. That's just the reality. And if you have something you want us to ask for, really the cutoff is we would need to know in very early December or November what that is. And then of course the division director would have to agree that that's something that fits in the priorities, not only for comprehensive planning, but for the whole planning and development services division's budget requests.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. That's helpful information, but it's a bit of a cart and horse thing. So if we can get council to understand the value of historic preservation to the residents and the visitors, maybe we could get the budget increased. So it's good to know that December deadline. I hear a lot of resistance from you, and I know you're all overworked, but I think, it's a discussion that we need to have because we're losing so many historic buildings in Flagstaff.
If I may, Chair, I don't mean it as a resistance. I mean it as 14 years, 13 years of the process that the city has and just giving you a realistic read of what is available and what we've been successful at so far in asking for funding for. Heritage preservation has been more successful in the grant side of things and grant seeking than it has in budget allocation seeking. That's just where things have been. So, and it could change, but that's currently our current budget direction was prepare for a recession. Just so you know, in terms of timing, there was very few new things in the budget, and they were very much most of them, I think they said there was 16 million in new spending, but it was offset by like 12.7 million in savings that we were doing with that spending. So we're on a tight budget year. So I just think I'm just giving you the reality that we've even been told internally not to particularly look for cushion money in the city budget at this time. And there's times where it's more robust and it's more optimistic. That's just how sales taxes and the overall macroeconomics have been playing out in the last year and a half. So I just want you all to know, since when you're talking about projects, you're talking about time and money. So now you have money context.
Thank you.
Well, a couple of things. One is about the budget and writing for grants. Maybe we could look at how much revenue in sales tax comes from historic districts. I mean, my understanding is one of the biggest draws for Flagstaff is its historic downtown businesses, even more so than the Grand Canyon. Now, I have been told that. I haven't read that. So, and if that's the case, then this is an economic of importance to the city and a tax revenue. So I would love to see, sort of along the line of place economics, sort of some data on how important that is. Second, maybe we could have a session, and is this something that we would need to agendacize, or do we, when Georgiana was talking earlier about informal working groups or something, we can like throw out ideas, spaghetti on the wall, see what sticks, come up with things that might be actionable items, long-term goals, things we may be able to achieve in this goal or in this year, and start there.
Yeah, I think so. Yes. In terms of, whether it's like a subcommittee versus a working group would be the definition of like, is the commission taking action on this? So maybe like so it sounds like potentially you're suggesting like a meeting where you all kind of vote on a work plan for the year, which would probably be either, an actual agendized meeting of this commission, or a subcommittee, although there may be enough interest that everyone would want to do it as a regular meeting item. But a working group maybe could be like, oh, a few of us are going to develop a new walking tour and do all of the research and meet and go through all of that. And that could, maybe be a working group who meets on that. That doesn't need to be a full public meeting.
Well, I was just kind of wondering what everybody, does everybody want to participate? And what is the way in which we can move forward on how we do this? Do we agendacize a special session? Do we set aside time each time for our monthly meetings? Or do we assign a working group? I mean, how do we get this ball rolling?
I think it would be great, like you mentioned, to hear from everyone who is interested in participating and how much time are you willing to commit? Like just within the regular meeting, short discussion, are you willing to join an outside group and dedicate more time? And how often are you willing to do that? I think that would be great if everyone could go around the commission and say how much they're willing to participate.
Do we want to have that conversation at this meeting, or do we want to like think about it and maybe brainstorm again and put it on the next meeting's agenda to discuss after folks have had some chance to digest and think? It just feels a little sudden.
I do. I think it would be nice if we had a more streamlined approach or constrained goal. I also want to say thank you to Sarah and Lauren for all the work that you already do reaching out to the public. I was here when like the new window requirements came in, and you guys spent so much time like emailing people and like working with people if they came in with windows and informing the staff of how to, deal with people who want to replace windows. And I think there's a point at which you can send a bajillion flyers, but you cannot make people read them. You cannot make them care about heritage preservation. And so I'm in favor of reaching out to people, but you can't just like go grab people and be like, you must care about this house and not tear. Like, we're just never going to reach everybody. And so I want to make sure that we're doing things that are reaching out. Like the tour we had, like the guy cared about the buildings downtown and he was going to preserve them. And maybe we need to celebrate those kinds of things, or build a walking tour of some of the historic homes downtown, because in looking at the Discover Flagstaff website, there isn't one for houses.
Yeah.
And so building something like that and getting people to see who already kind of care, like the tours we run at Apex, the archaeological site I work at, we got so many people who were just dragged there by family who were interested. We had one like high school student who like just loved archaeology, and his dad was like, well, I guess I'll go on this thing with you. And he was like, that was really cool. I learned a lot. So sometimes you just need to find the people who are interested, and then they can be the ones who drag other people along by, fixing a building downtown and making it look really nice. So for me, I'd like to have a clearer scope of what this is going to be, rather than like, let's just do public education, because my interests in that are going to be, maybe different than someone else's.
Okay. Well, I'm hearing for the most part, everyone would like to think about it. Maybe we are gonna, continue this item to the next agenda. I don't want to forget about the public comment that we have to hear if we're at a stopping place. But I was going to make this announcement later on in the announcement section of the agenda, but I think it's relevant now. So I submitted a proclamation for Preservation Month, which is the month of May, for the mayor to sign and read at City Council, and that is going to be on the May 19th City Council agenda. And I encourage everyone to come. I did this last year, and unfortunately, despite explaining it or advertising that we were doing this to the commission, everyone, only Sarah and I stood up for Historic Preservation Month for the entire city of Flagstaff. So I would love it if the commission would be willing to come to the city council meeting at 3 p.m. on May 19th and have a showing. We can all be up here. We can accept the proclamation. We can stand in the front of the room, visibly show the support for heritage preservation in the city of Flagstaff, because it was also a huge letdown, because it was Public Works Week was the same one, and they went first, and they had like 60 people up here, and then it was just Sarah and I. So I was like, we care just as much about heritage preservation as we do about public works. So please come. That is, is an opportunity. The proclamation is going to be celebrating preservation nationally and locally. So that's a great opportunity to get in front of the public and council. So please come on May 19th.
What time?
The meeting starts at 3 p.m. And after the normal business at the beginning is when the proclamations happen. So it'll be pretty shortly after 3. I do believe Public Works is going before again. So we'll have to rope some more people in. But yes, and our SHPO folks who are attending, I was going to invite them as well. So please come. It may change, but in the draft proclamation I wrote, I also did a shout out to the Pioneer Museum reopening this year, and I was going to invite the new manager of the Pioneer Museum as well. So please come.
So Lauren, thank you for that information. And whenever you have anything, like I don't know that I can make that because I have a commitment that night, but I can send an email in support.
Mhm.
And but whenever you have anything like this, if you tell us, you'll probably get a response from us. So thank you for sharing
Unfortunately, it
that.
didn't happen last year, so that's why my desperate plea this year. Please come. But yes, I wanted to make the announcement tonight, and I can follow up in an email that people can forward.
I would love to come, but I will be on a high-speed train between Paris and France on the way to the airport on the 19th. So
Is that something we need to tell you if we're coming to? So you need to announce a quorum?
No, I think we're covered by the city council meeting, but often happens. But you don't need to RSVP. I can double check the notice of quorum with Georgiana if she thinks I need to do that. But they'll welcome everyone who wants to participate in the photo and the presentation to come on up. So, and with that, do we want to move to the public comment?
Yes, Phil Scandura, please come up and share your thoughts.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Phil Scandura. I do have a prepared statement I want to read, but on a personal note, it came to my mind. I moved from an urban center on the East Coast to a small town in the Midwest in the 6th grade. And one of the first things that I was told about was the antebellum home tour. And I was like, I have no clue what that is, but I fell in love with it. So a home tour would be a great add. All right. I understand the focus of this discussion is what the commission can do to educate the public. And it's very important. But more importantly, however, is what you as individual commissioners are doing to educate yourselves. I realize that each of you brings your area of professional expertise to the table, and that's why you're selected to serve. But what else should you bring? Do you know what is important to the people of Flagstaff? Do you know what is important to the many historical groups in Flagstaff? Do you know what is important to the founding families of Flagstaff? Do you know how they feel about their city and its history? Do you know what they care about? I'm not talking about some report or strategic plan. I'm talking about the people of Flagstaff, folks you interact with every day. People in your neighborhood, where you work, where you play, people where you worship, at your child's school, in your social circles, even people you meet on the street. Earlier this week, I spoke with a woman so upset about the demolition of the David Babbitt house that she was crying on the phone. She was crying so much so that we couldn't finish the conversation. Her feelings about Flagstaff history were very clear to me that night. Until you know what the people of Flagstaff value, what they want, what concerns them, you cannot effectively do this job. And that is why I encourage you to educate yourselves on what the people of this city want. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Anything else from the commission? No. So I don't think we need a motion. This was just discussion. So
Correct.
can we bring this back on the next agenda? I mean, I could see we have a very small non-quorum committee just to have a discussion to identify the areas that we think need to be addressed and then bring that back and then people can think about that. And then, just work on it and eventually see if we can come up with something.
I'd be happy to have a follow-up item where everyone's had time to think about like the time commitment, the structure of this meeting, working group, subcommittee, and ideas for besides the walking tour. It sounds like we're all big support of having presidential walking tours.
I do a walking tour of this neighborhood. Anyone who wants to come.
Well, we can write it down, and then the visitor center can have at least the stops.
Well, what would people like?
what about we agendize further discussion for the next meeting? And then meanwhile, we all have an opportunity to kind of think of some ideas, maybe think of our own like top 3 or something, kind of creatively think of bunch, throw them out there, then we can all throw out a couple of ideas and maybe go from there on how to proceed, including like how we would meet or have a working group or what would that look like?
I guess no one else has anything to say. Thank you, Lauren.
I have a quick request. Can we have a 5-minute break? I've been waiting for a while.
Yeah.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Yes, you can take adjourn if you'd like to call a 5-minute recess.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute. People okay with that? 5-minute recess?
Right.
I know, but we have.
I can just step out. You guys can continue. How's that?
Yeah, and it is right, just the approval section, so I can just quickly cover them. I mean, they're, again, and then you can ask questions if you have specifics about them. So apologies that since it's 2 months worth of approvals, so there's quite a few on the list here, but the first one is a new sign in the downtown overlay, certificate of no effect for meeting the sign guidelines for downtown. And is on Route 66. The 109 North LaRue Street, Suite A is also the same, new business, new sign, which we've all visited the new business, or some of us on the walking tour. So that's the Too Cool Sportswear. The 123 North San Francisco is rooftop service equipment and associated screening of the rooftop equipment within the downtown overlay certificate of no effect. They're at 814 West Coconino Avenue. This is a historic age outbuilding that was proposed to be demolished. The property has not previously been evaluated. And traditionally in this area, there's a couple of these that have come up over the last year or two in that area where we have requested a letter report documenting and evaluating the outbuilding before it was demolished, and it met the letter report criteria as found not to be significant. And then the 9 North LaRue Street certificate of no effect. Oh, no, I'm forgetting. This one must be. Oh, this, right. I was like, this one's not a sign. This one is an interesting one. The owner is repairing the existing wood windows on the front of the building. The glass panes are broken and the glass is being replaced and needed to do some minor repairs to the wood in order just to prolong the life of the windows. And that also met the criteria for certificate of no effect in the downtown overlay. And then the consultation, the Butler Complete Streets project is moving forward in the Section 106 in NEPA world. This is a project using federal money from the Federal Highway Administration, which is why it has to comply with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. And Federal Highway Administration is the lead federal agency and recently sent out Section 106 consultation on the project, including cultural resource study of the project area, which does go through a historic district and a finding of no adverse effect to the historic district. And we have received concurrences from SHPO as well as the other consulting parties who replied within the window. So that has now closed. So any questions on any of the approval items? Commissioner Dominguez.
814,
Mm-hmm.
what is getting demolished?
The little back building. So not the house in the, oh, this is the application, not the house in the front, but the little historic ADU, if you will. I believe Lynn referred to it as an ADU in the report. That's in the back here along the alley.
Just a little history on that. A lot of teachers lived in that home, in that house. That was original student housing way back in the 40s and the 50s. And it does look like a shack. And it was, it's $55 a month and and you lived wherever you could. And I just wanted to make sure, because that's the Schaefer home, the front that we know
Right,
it as the Schaefer home.
the front is not.
And so I just wanted to make sure the front wasn't going to be demolished. Thank you.
No, really, it's just fallen so badly into disrepair that they felt it was time to demo the back building, but no plans on the front building are associated with the project.
Yeah, it's still being lived in, correct? The front.
The front, yes. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Not the not the back. Don't know if you look through all of the photos, but I certainly hope it is not worth $55 a month in the present state.
Lauren, didn't that come before us already? They're going to build a new ADU back there?
This is the scope of this project is the demolition of the existing one. Although because it's not, sorry?
It reminded me of the one where they did like the drone or the 3D photogrammetry
right.
of it. It looked like a very similar building. And I was like, didn't I see this already at dilapidated, falling apart ADU? But
Right,
it was
no.
a different lot.
That's the one at, what is it, 418 South LaRue? Yeah. Different one. But this one, because it's not in an overlay, there are no design guidelines that you would be receiving a certificate for a new ADU. So it would not come before you if that is in the future. But so far, this was done for the demo permit. Any other questions on any of these?
Any informational items from council members or staff?
I had a few. So I said I did our council proclamation update. I did just want to formally welcome Caitlin, who is still online, to the commission. We did, February was kind of a debacle with the lights not being on in the room. And we got off to a rocky start. And I did not formally say welcome, Caitlin. Oh, now she's gone. But welcome, Caitlin, our newest commissioner. I also wanted to announce that this is Nancy's last meeting with us because she is leaving the city in her position. And we are very sad to see her go. And I just wanted to give a huge thank you to Nancy for being the behind the scenes, everything, taking our minutes, making sure, running the timer, doing all the things. So thank you very much, Nancy. Yeah, so wanted to recognize Nancy. And yeah, we'll communicate what the game plan is moving forward in terms of like who's sending things out, et cetera. But for now, it'll probably, please just feel free to contact me about anything. I did also, the last announcement I wanted to make is we, the city of Flagstaff, were made aware of an ADOT grant program, very last minute, but the ADOT has a grant program that can cover many things, including historic preservation studies and work. It is designed to be covering things that are, on a highway and are transportation related facilities. The way it was worded, it's really like, you have a it mentioned historic lighthouses, like your city is operating a historic lighthouse or a historic train station. Yeah, well, it's a federal pass-through, so hence the lighthouses. Yeah, I would love to know where the historic lighthouse being operated in Arizona is. But so we were made aware of this grant. Someone at Metro Plan reached out to our Economic Vitality Division 2 weeks, I think, or less, like 10 days before the grant was due. And we decided to throw a last minute kind of grant application together that is a bit of a reach, but for the El Pueblo, are arguing that as it is on historic Route 66, which is an ADOT facility, and trying to argue up its transportation relevance as a transportation facility, which, yes. So hopefully someone will buy that argument. But so we threw a grant application together. Dave McIntyre and Economic Vitality and I worked together on this along with Metro Plan. We did reach out to the State Historic Preservation Office, got a letter of support, also got one from Metro Plan, and of course, a matching commitment letter from our city manager. So we did get that submitted on time. We also got a letter of support from the property owner, of course, and I worked with the property owner's realtor to secure that and walk through the project. And so what we asked for was funding to do condition assessment of all of the remaining buildings, and, kind of just exhaustively document what's there. Some of that, much of which we already have, but at this point we're losing it so fast. We want to do the full condition assessment, do everything, and also feasibility study. So the property is still for sale. Hopefully, if we were granted this project, it would help spurn, some interest in the property, and some of the work would already be taken care of in terms of doing that condition assessment. You wouldn't have to pay for it. You already know. So hopefully make it more attractive for investment and preservation. So I will say, though, I do feel like it was a bit of a reach. So, and I did hear from Dave later, I believe he said, outrageous sums of money here, but it was something like there's like $1.4 million available for this grant, and they got $140 million in grant requests. So we will see what happens. So I will let you know, but we did throw that in there. So
Didn't the National Trust put it on the top 10 most endangered properties of the United States in years past?
yes.
And maybe they could be supportive or throw in some additional Route 66 grant money that might help stretch something along. Should you guys get the
Right.
grant
Should
get
we get it?
awarded?
Yeah, I think, and I'm sure I know that I'm sure the interest is still there. Unfortunately, the last couple rounds, the grant opportunity from the National Trust and other Route 66 opportunities were shared with the property owner who wasn't interested in pursuing them at the time. But I think that's a great idea to match things moving forward. So we'll see. This is a large dollar grant amount, though, so it would cover the majority of at least these studies, but then any actual work that would need to be done would still need to be funded separately.
That would be a real win if the El Pueblo is saved. And then maybe that's something we should think about for, education, is like preservation awards for Flagstaff or something of properties that get saved.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything? Jesse?
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I guess I better. This is a sort of commission and not commission based. The Plaza Vieja Neighborhood Association is trying to do inventories of our historical buildings. And so, does anybody know of a picture of the Little Brown Jug liquor store right just south of Papa John's? If anybody has a picture of the Little Brown Jug, it was on Route 66. If anybody can find, we're looking for a picture of the Little Brown Jug. Unfortunately, it burned up. It was built out of Army boxes, Army ammunition boxes, and the insulation was sawdust. So it went up quick. But we're just trying to get a picture of it. So if anybody has one hidden somewhere, please let me know.
Do you know the date ranges about of when it would have been there, or when it burned up?
Probably 1940s to mid 60s. Thank you.
Anyone else? Looks like Sarah has something.
Yes, I think Ariana earlier mentioned that the Arizona State Planning Conference is happening in Flagstaff. And me and Ben Mejia are co-chairing that committee from the city. And so I wanted to let you know that the theme for the overall conference is historic routes, timeless skies. And so it is really centering on Route 66 and on the dark skies. What do we call it? Jubilee? Is that the right word we're using now? And other things going on that are very Flagstaff specific. So we really are encouraging, if you know anyone or if the commission or anyone wants to put in any call for sessions, we even take advice on mobile workshops if there's things you wanted to see planners throughout the state really get from their experience of coming up to Flagstaff. This commission really, or this conference really only comes to Flagstaff about once every 10 years. It spends a lot of its time in Tucson and Phoenix and Tucson and Phoenix and Tucson and Phoenix. And then every once in a while it goes to Prescott or it comes here. So it's a great opportunity to show planners from throughout the state, both private sector, public sector, land use attorneys. There's a lot of developers that attend the conference. It tends to be about 600 people. So if you've got ideas, if you want to submit something, you can always send me an email, and I can send you the call for sessions. And we are happy to have, you don't have to be an APA member to submit a session. So also those of you who work at NAU or the Park Service, please spread the word to your colleagues.
I don't know if I said it earlier, but it's November 4th and 5th. So a Wednesday and Thursday, with possible add-on sessions on Friday.
Yeah, we might use Friday, November 6th as like a full mobile workshop day where we're just offering extra mobile workshops because, sometimes they come up with a list of like 3 or 4, and just our brainstorming list was like more than a dozen ideas. So we want to offer more if we can, and maybe those people will stay for the weekend. Always a good thing to see if we can provide some extra traffic for our downtown businesses and Southside businesses. Thank you.
Okay, this turned into a long meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your commitment and time. We appreciate it. Do we have anything else that people want to talk about? No? Okay, well, it is. What's the official time, Nancy? 6:48. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.